Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
When you're starting off with something new, it seems like your to-do list keeps growing. Finding the right tool helps, and that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of U.S. e-commerce. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/retail. Go to shopify.com/retail.
What's up? It's Sean Linda from Two Black Guys with Good Credit. If managed supply runs is still on your to-do list, here's your sign to upgrade. Walmart Business has the tech, tools, and services that make it ridiculously easy to stock up for your office or team. Think scheduled deliveries, multi-user accounts, and even IT setup. Bonus, with a Walmart Business Plus membership, you get free shipping, spend analytics, and 2% rewards. Join the smart way to shop at business.walmart.com. Terms apply.
Welcome to DTNS Experiment Week. Yes, it is back again all this week. We're preempting our regular programming to try out some new show ideas, explore cross-show opportunities, give you some exclusive content we wouldn't do at other times of the year. So after you listen, please let us know what you think. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. On with today's experiment.
When TechTV launched in August of 1998 as ZDTV, was positioned as a 24-hour cable network devoted to computers, technology, and internet. Now, part of that mission was video games, and one of those important spin-out benefits from the network was a show called GameSpot TV, which eventually became Extended Play and then X-Play, and I'm not sure if there was a fourth name after G4 acquired the network. But I have with me one of the people, foundational people, not just for the show, but for the network as a whole, Adam Sessler. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing, Roger?
Good. It's been a long time no see. We've worked on and off at various ventures, but I first met Adam at ZDTV, and I will tell you, when I first met Adam, the network was still being built. I remember the sets still having plastic covering a lot of the sets because they were still building them. They were building the boxing ring that went into that set that you inhabited for what, 2-3 years?
The boxing ring got phased out quickly, thank God. But yeah, the strange back alley flame that look, I think that went on through the TechTV name change. Until we were kind of booted out of the studio itself, which was probably 2000, 2001. Wow. So, and then we were shooting out there. But the one thing is GameSpot TV didn't launch with the network.
Oh, it did.
Yeah. In fact, I wasn't working there when the network launched because I've put the story together over decades now. Wow, that makes my knees hurt.
So this is a great place to start. How did you get involved with ZDTV?
Yeah, this is – I cannot tell you how many people have asked me, how can I get a job like yours? Or what advice do you have for me as a youth trying to, forge my path? And this doesn't inspire anybody. A series of amazing coincidences occurred. I was not that much of a gamer. I was not even aware that ZDTV existed. I was aware of the Soul Dad O'Brien show, the site that was on MSNBC. It was MSNBC.
Yeah, it was MSNBC.
Yeah. So two things happened. One, before I knew of anything, there was supposed to be a host for the show. He was a former MTV VJ. If you look it up, you'll figure out who it is. I'm not going to say who it was. They couldn't go forward with him because he had done some adult entertainment. Because he had kind of a Dirk Diggler type of special quality to it. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. And so they had to hold off on launching the show and then had to quickly look for a male host. Now, I was working at a bank. Even though I was an English major, I had no aptitude for this job, but I was hanging out with a lot of people. I think for those who are younger and don't know, San Francisco in that part of the 90s was like one of the hippest places you could be. And it was vibrant. It was social. People just knew each other.
The term bohemian immediately comes to mind. If you were to describe that period of time, if you've never seen the movie with Mike Myers, not the action or not the killer from Halloween, but the comedian, called "So I Married an Axe Murderer," the opening scene kind of describes the zeitgeist of the city at the time.
Yeah. So it was a lively place. You just knew tons of people. That was just how it kind of worked. And of my crew of close friends, there was a woman who was dating a guy whose roommate worked at GameSpot. He was, I don't believe the EIC, but the managing editor. His name was Trent. And he knew me through this connection from a cable access comedy show I was doing with these friends. And he thought, oh, this guy might, be able to bring some of the TV thing to the table, so let's have him audition. And so my friend said, oh, go audition. I got there. I remember I was in the lobby of the studio, because our studio and the offices were not in the same location in order to save money. And everyone seemed to know each other except for me, and I was like, I don't know. But then, lo and behold, the person who was directing the audition, her name was Julie or Julia, also happened to be the woman who ran the public access station in San Francisco that her show appeared on. So she knew me.
Julie Hendricks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Julie Hendricks, yes.
Yeah. So I go into the audition. There's prompter. I see prompter. I've never read prompter before, but I had a lot of theatrical background, so it wasn't that shocking. So I just kind of went for it, and it worked really well. And then the floor director kind of went like this because he didn't understand what he was being asked to ask of me. And he goes, would you mind river dancing? And I knew what he meant, which is there was a sketch that we had done on our public access show where I was Michael Flatley, famous of Riverdance. And it was supposed to be a Michael Flatley teaching a community college class of river dancing. And all I did was just kind of hold my arms really rigid to my side and kick as high as I could. And so that's what I did. And I was told because I did that without any pause, I got the gig.
Wow. So it's because you were able to do an impression of Michael Flatley that
river dancing, softcore gay porn, and that was my path to employment. The best part was I actually was lying about that job, about the GameSpot TV job for months at the bank. I just kept taking Friday off because we were shooting on Fridays because I didn't know if it was going to work out. And so I didn't want to give up the job that I had. And so I was moonlighting in a very complicated way because when you work on TV, it's with the intention that people will see you. And eventually people started to suss out that I might have been doing a second job.
So you were moonlighting, but during the day. Now let me say this: you had a very, very memorable story about your first day and missing your bus, and then running after said bus that was supposed to take you to the studio.
Yeah, because 6 o'clock. It was a 6 a.m. call time. I lived in the Lower Haight. Once again, the Lower Haight as it exists now in San Francisco actually hasn't changed that much. Back then, it was dicey. It was dicey at all times. At 6 o'clock in the morning, well, really 5 o'clock, because that's when I had to get up. It was double dicey. And so I would try to get to the bus stop, but wait at the bus stop for as little as time as possible, so I didn't start to draw attention from kind of the denizens that had not realized that the sun was coming up. And yeah, I missed my bus, and I tried to chase that thing down, and I just wanted them. I remember trying to scream at them, but I have to be on television. Because I thought the television would open doors for me like that, like buses waiting extra, to indulge me. That didn't happen until LA, but yeah.
Were you involved with any sort of the developing the concept of what the show was, like what kind of segments you would do, what kind of how would do with the reviews, the kind of relationships you would build with software publishers, and like the kind of angle with all that?
So not at the very beginning. See, that was the other reason that I was still working at the bank, is I wanted out of that bank so badly. Like, it was just dead end. Right before I got the GameSpot TV job, I was actually considering taking accounting classes. Because, when you're 21, 22, and you're really young, you don't realize that there's a lot of life in front of you. So you kind of can convince yourself the job you have is the job you're going to keep for the rest of your life. Yes. So I needed out. And so I refused to sign my contract saying that I would host the show unless they gave me a full-time gig where I could produce the show. And that took about 3-4 months of, kind of convincing them. I think they just needed to find the money. I think Peter needed to find the money. And so it finally worked out. And I had to first learn television, which was a somewhat steep learning curve. But I think the one part that was kind of neat is that there was no template for gaming television. There was one other show that was on, and that was Electric Playground, Tommy Tallarico and Victor's show, which was produced out of Canada. So it was kind of, I had to learn the basics of television while creating an absolutely unprecedented form of television, because the focus had to be on the games, on what, we would call it B-roll. That's the common term for stuff that isn't the host talking. And it's called B-roll because it's not supposed to be as important as your A-roll, which is your host, your live action, like the important stuff. But the B-roll is actually the most important element when you're doing TV about games, because that's what people are tuning in for. The part that's just kind of representative of what you're talking about. They really weren't there to see me. They were probably there to see all of my co-hosts way more than they were to see me. But first and foremost, they were there to see the games. And figuring out just how long you could let one clip of video game go before you had to cut to something else was one of those things I definitely contributed to. But at the time, in terms of the most basic content, it was previews, it was news, it was reviews. I was stuck on doing the previews because I think that the presumption was I could do the least amount of damage doing that. Reviews, on the other hand, as I was to learn, for all the successive years, that's the gold. That's why people tune in, and that drives about a third of internet arguments. And so it was a while before I did that.
Now, when you were there initially, I'm assuming the format or the style of the show changed. How quickly did that happen? Was it like these aren't working, and within the first few months they changed things around, or was it more of a slow, drawn out process?
Things changed pretty fast in the beginning. I think in no small part because ZDTV, we were in how many homes? We were 15 million? Yeah, 40 initially. Million? Okay.
We were 40 million once we were on the DirecTV dish.
DirecTV. But in terms of getting good solid placement on certain cable outlets, it was, we were very big in Alabama. That I remember. Screensavers, you guys, I think a quarter of the calls were coming out of Alabama. But so because there weren't a ton of eyes on us, and remember, GameSpot TV was weekly. It was on the weekends. So we were kind of small fry. And so that boxing ring, which we started with, which I think the purpose of it was to, honestly, I don't remember why.
I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, the gentleman's name was John.
Oh,
He
yeah,
was
yeah,
like-
John. Yeah, there was a third host.
Yeah, he was. So this for anyone who doesn't remember, GameSpot TV originally started with 3 hosts. It was Adam, it was John, and he was going to law school or something at the time. I think that was the thing. Like he was a
He was in
kid at
business school.
Oh,
I'm
business.
He was in business school. He
Business
had
school.
that business school quality.
And then we had Lauren Fielder.
Yes, Lauren Fielder, who actually came from GameSpot, the website. And so for all of you out there, like I think one of the most interesting things is from the beginning, the most qualified people I interacted with on a daily basis, most qualified in terms of knowledge about video games, were women. And it's which, if you know anything about games journalism and the video game industry as a whole, is absolutely contrary to how it typically works.
And I remember you guys the way you're describing, you're handing off the hosting duties depending on which segment. Now, over time, you lost the boxing ring, and I think John
as well. I think John in the boxing ring went at the same time. There was also, it's been 25 years. There was something of a power struggle for leadership of the show. That did not involve me, but between 2 people. What the show started at was representative of one producer's vision, and it quickly shifted over to another producer's vision that was a little more mainstream TV magazine. I think at the end of the day was more viable just given the very, very limited budget and resources that we had. And also the biggest problem is when you're doing gaming television, you're absolutely at the mercy of what the game industry is doing. There's very little you can kind of do on your own. So it's not like where movies used to be, where there's a new movie coming out every week. That's not like games were not coming out with that kind of easy cadence. At the end of the year, there's a lot. And I would say in the late spring, there's a lot. And then you have to figure out how to get through those leaner times. And so having a less rigid structure to the show, but having a more clear cut types of segments made the show much easier to produce.
Now we're at the start of Extended Play, you were a managing editor, I believe.
What was it? No, I was a segment producer, which I now know was an outrageously cool thing to be called. Like, that was a serious title to have within the world of television. And bear in mind, that world of television was quickly coming to a close, because local TV was getting absolutely eaten alive by cable networks and things out there. But a segment producer was something you got after about 10 years worth of work. You would start out as a PA, an associate producer. I did not know this. I just produced segments. So one of the things I know about producing the show is that it involves a lot of pre-production. How much of that was like, wow, this is so amazing, or man, I never realized you had to do all this before you got in front of the camera to record something? There was a lot of work. I don't think I kind of knew there was going to be a lot. It wasn't just TV magic, but the banality of it, I wasn't prepared for. And it kind of goes back to like just the idea of B-roll and just having to collect so much footage just for maybe a 90-second segment. I would have to play a game, assuming there was a game that I could play to get the footage from. I would say that if you wanted 90 seconds, you wanted at least 2 hours worth of playtime of recording of just raw footage of you playing to get 90 seconds worth of clips that were interesting looking. And that was kind of the hard work. I know nobody else out there was like, oh my God, you had to play games. But trust me, playing an unfinished PC game to try to, and then trying to record it with equipment that was available in 1998. I mean, that was the other thing. Trying to get images off of a computer and onto digital videotape was one of the most circuitous. It was horrifying.
Yeah. I mean, especially because broadcast. I mean, remember, we're not dealing with HD TV. Yeah. We're dealing with the old school, like NTSC. you needed some really clever workarounds to get it recorded. And this is the thing, unlike video game consoles, which are default NTSC devices, PCs run at a different resolution. So you had to set the games at it was so crazy. What did a typical workday for you look like? Did you just walk into the office, sit down, punch out a bunch of emails, go to the capture station, play games, get your 2 hours of video, and then sit back at your desk, grab lunch, write scripts, and then go down to the studio to record? Or is it like...
that's a... Yes and no. Remember, we only recorded once a week, and so rarely in the studio. So like we recorded early Friday mornings. But the rest of the week was getting all those segments. So, you would record me on those Friday mornings of going, hello, welcome to GameSpot TV. Oh, wow, Daikatana's coming out. We got some new footage of Daikatana. Let's check it out. And then the thing that would happen after the Flames came up, because that was our transition, because it was the 90s with Extreme and Flames. That stuff was really the bulk of the show. So the rest of the week was putting that together, which was playing the game, writing the script, recording, doing the VO for the script, going into the edit bay with an editor and taking those chunks of gameplay and then trying to slap it on to my VO and marrying it all together so that you had a 2 to 3 minute piece of content that you were going to be tossing to on that Friday, or at the very least in the finished product of the show. And that really was the bulk of the work. It was whereas for you guys on Screensavers, like you built up, you worked hard, and then you had kind of the catharsis of this live production where, anything could happen day every day. And ours was always kind of this, it was the exact opposite. You kind of strained and killed yourself during the week for this kind of whimper of a recording session.
What you had a particular image on camera. Now, was that something that was you normally, or was that something that the producers decided to cultivate for you?
No, that was me. You'd have to understand, I had a mixture of the worst imposter syndrome because, I did not deserve this job as far as I was concerned. Just like I didn't deserve the banking job. It was I at that point, I think I believed so deeply in some sort of Lord of Chaos who just, had been beneficent and just arranged things where I got this job where, I would meet people like Jeff Gertzman or Lauren Fielder, my co-host, and I knew that they had every reason to question my integrity, and I quickly realized how, not nasty, but just what the world of the video game audience was like, where if you showed that, if you did not make a claim for your status writing about video games, people would just eat you alive. And so I was always cognizant of that while also being incredibly cocky because I was a 20-year-old dude in San Francisco in the 90s. Who was on TV, even though no one could get it in San Francisco. So it was the most useless, moderate fame that one could ever have. But I had these sort of two things competing, and so I leaned on sort of what was a more accelerated version of my own persona, which was self-effacing, but also just sort of observational comedy for everything. And I think as a result, that's sort of what became X-Play so many years later, and why we were always comfortable with creating a show that was very appealing to the core gamer, but could actually be enjoyed by someone that wasn't that into video games either, with all of that humor, because that was the way I started out. I needed to understand this crazy world that I was getting into with terms like frame rate and jaggies and collision detection and hitboxes.
Picture this. You're in the garage, hands covered in grease, just finished up tuning your engine with a part you found on eBay, and you realize, you know what? I could also use new brakes. So where do you go next? Back to eBay. You can find anything there. It's unreal. Wipers, headlights, even cold air intakes. It's all there. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. You order a part, and if it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. Look, DIY fixes can be major. Doesn't matter if it's just maintenance or a major mod. You got it, especially when things are guaranteed to fit. So when you dive into your next car project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love.
If your dog could talk, they'd beg for Ollie. The full-body tail wag, the excited little hops, the big, goofy grin, that's the Ollie effect. Ollie delivers clean, fresh nutrition in 5 drool-worthy flavors, even for the pickiest eaters. Made in U.S. kitchens with high-quality, human-grade ingredients, Ollie's food contains no fillers, no preservatives, just real food. Just fill out Ollie's 30-second quiz and they'll create a customized meal plan based on your pup's weight, activity level, and other health info. Dogs deserve the best, and that means fresh, healthy food. Head to ollie.com/healthypup, tell them about your dog, and use code HEALTHYPUP to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/healthypup and enter code HEALTHYPUP to get 60% off your first box.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows home so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews all on the app. Download today.
Psoriatic arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable.
I had joint pain, and I couldn't move like I used to.
I needed relief.
I got Cosentyx.
It helped me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
Hey, it's Maya and Sim from the Girls That Invest podcast. If you are an IT or security pro, you know managing devices, identities, and applications can feel overwhelming and honestly risky. That's where Trellica by 1Password comes in. It helps conquer SaaS sprawl and shadow IT by discovering every app your team uses, managed or not. With pre-built app profiles, you can assess risk, manage access, and even optimize your software spend. Plus, it simplifies onboarding, offboarding, and compliance, all while cutting costs by eliminating unused licenses. Take the first step to better security for your team. Learn more at onepassword.com/special offer.
Were there moments that stand out to you from your time doing the show that really just kind of hit you in the forehead? It's like, wow, people watch my show, or I am an iconic person in this space. Like, people turn to me because I have the information they're looking for.
It probably was years before that happened. But I do remember it was while we were TechTV, went to Star Wars Celebration, I believe. If it wasn't that, it was Gen Con. Both at the time were being held in Indianapolis at their new convention center. Went there, and I couldn't go more than 5 feet without somebody saying, Adam Sessler, Adam Sessler, Adam Sessler. And that had never happened before. And it was kind of neat. I was like, oh, hold on. Something's working here. And that was really cool. Because it really, it was tough. I don't know how you felt about it, Roger, but it was somewhat tough back when we first started because everyone was working so hard at ZDTV, TechTV. But there was no sense of reaction from our immediate world. You went out on the weekend or in the evenings, and they're like, "What's it called? TechTV, ZDTV." Like, it had very limited pull. As time went on, and the internet.com thing started to grow, at least within that world, we had some currency. But outside of that, it was kind of nothing. You had to go to Vegas. Actually, that's the other time. The CES.
Oh, yes.
There was a CES we went to, and we were on cable in Vegas in like the low teens, and that is just gold. Like to get that kind of placement, and with the Rum Jungle at the Mandalay Bay, like every time I walked in there, the DJ got on the mic and was like, "Adam Sessler in the house." And I got free drinks. People are like, "Who are you?" And that was magical.
Did you ever feel a sense of? I know you mentioned imposter syndrome, but do you ever feel that you had this persona that you had to maintain when you were interfacing with the public? But then, like when you got home, it's like, man, like I hate video games. Or man, all I want to do is just like sit here and read the newspaper or.
The big one for me was the understandable mistake that people had that Kate and I, or Morgan and I, or Lauren and I reviewed all those games. Because it was our voice on those reviews, but of course we didn't. Originally we were taking the reviews from GameSpot because Ziff Davis owned both. And so we were just sort of using their effort and reviews for our content. Once we had the breakaway with TechTV, we had to take that on, which was, that was a lot of work. And it became easier as time went on. But obviously there was other people who were like, say, specialists in MMOs. I didn't play MMOs. How can I? I have to play as many games as I can, so I'm not going to play MMOs. But everyone thought they could engage with me on a discussion of World of Warcraft at a very deep level, because that's how I was being presented on the show, and I was absolutely all thumbs when it came to something like that. So, at the end of the day, I had to learn to. It was exhausting sometimes to maintain that image without breaking that illusion. But it was. I think it was only at certain events, say like a Star Wars Celebration, a Gen Con, a Comic Con, or an E3, where I just had to go hide afterwards because I was just having to be the most on person that there ever was. But day to day, I was able to survive. I was no international sex symbol. I can definitely tell you that. Unlike you, Roger. Unlike you.
You know what? I was just a humble producer that sometimes stood in front of the camera. You know what? It's interesting. You brought up a very interesting fact. You had three, not counting John. You had three co-hosts or four? No, three. So you had.
There was also Blair Herder at the very, very end. So yeah, 3 to 4.
So 3 to 4. What was the shift precipitated by your co-host desiring to move on from the project, or they felt like the show needed a different direction, or was it some combination of the two, or is it just that's how it worked out?
Kate was able to choose. Like it was her choice to move on. Lauren, when the split happened with TechTV, it was something. I don't know the particulars of it. You might know. I got the sense it was a weird split. I wouldn't say it was angry or anything like that, but there was a lot of I'm going to take my toys and walk over here type attitude. So Lauren couldn't be on the show anymore. Yeah, and Morgan was brought on because they knew there had to be another host, because they decided to just keep me after Kate left because it was cheaper. Everything at that era was just cheaper. But then when they decided to go X-Play, they knew that it had to be carried by two people. There had to be a man and a woman, and so they brought her on.
I worked with Lauren well after TechTV moved on to G4 and they moved down to LA, but I was over at CNET working for GameSpot Live at the time, and she came on and she helped us out with one E3 back in 2025, not 2025, 2005.
Really? Okay.
And it was
that's still, that's cool.
And I was struck that she still remembered a lot of her time back at GameSpot TV, and she had very positive things to say about the whole thing. And I've always felt this way about the screensavers and Call for Help. But do you feel that there was maybe a familial aspect or kind of camaraderie in the production group that you had with that show?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say with the entire network. Like, I have deeply fond memories of the ZDTV TechTV era. Like, it was young people who worked really hard, and some of the most educated people I ever worked with who were trying to do something different. And look, a lot of what Screensavers, I would say, was definitely sort of at the tip of the spear on this, but it permeated to so many shows on the network. We were kind of fumbling in the dark, creating the logic that YouTube now functions under, or other types of streaming, Twitch, things like that. That idea of a far more immediate connection with the audience, where you're not at this remove up on a pedestal, but there's something interactive. But the idea that, like, sort of the process of the show is somewhat predicated on the audience. Which, you know, obviously I say that now and that sounds just kind of rudimentary, but that was absolutely unthinkable back then.
It was an eye-opening experience for me. I mean, the logic, at least for the help shows, was based on Leo Laporte's experience doing talk radio. Talk radio does a lot of interaction with the audience in a way that at the time broadcast TV couldn't do. We changed the script on that because partially we were cable TV. We were allowed to do things like that.
Yes.
But were there any experiences that you took away from your time at Tech TV at G4 where you say, like, hey, I know now how to do this. I can do this on my own, or I can do this with another group, where it's not just like being in front of the camera, but how to relate to the audience, how to talk and interface with perhaps like publishers, with producers, with other, collaborating with other groups of people.
I would say the most important thing that happened was 2001. And for those of you out there, what happened with Tech TV is, with the creation of Tech TV and Paul Allen's investment in it, came the demand for Tech Live. One of the most quixotic creations in all of television, which was 9 hours of live TV, all about technology, and treating it like CNN. But there was just a ridiculous amount of money that was thrown at this issue, whether or not it was wise. And what brought with that was some insanely talented people who wanted to get out of kind of the daily grind of local television, maybe CNN, something like that. And I was suddenly being used a lot more, and I was kind of understanding television production from that far more immediate, like, we got to get something done for today. And how live TV might potentially work. And then as E3 was rolling around that year, I don't remember. I think it was my idea, but maybe one of the people on Tech Live got this bug in my head. I wanted to try to broadcast one of the press conferences live from E3. Because they were going to be announcing both the Xbox and the GameCube. I decided that the GameCube was the better one because Nintendo, people love Nintendo. I had a better relationship with Nintendo at the time. And what happened from there was, because of Nintendo wasn't like, they were like, okay, we guess this sounds good. No one had thought about that before, that these things that used to be very private, just the press and maybe some special guests were in those audiences, and they tended to have a funkier, more informal quality. Nintendo's like, okay, maybe we're going to change our act. And then we discovered that it was being done at the basement of the Biltmore Hotel, where we couldn't get a signal out. And so we had to come up with this insane jerry-rigged process to be able to tell them what camera to switch to. We had to do that over a rotary dial phone. But it was insane, but it was so much fun. And I loved the, like, okay, we have a crisis, we have to fix it. I was doing that with Ryan Vance, who was a longtime executive producer of the show. And it was like suddenly this sense of immediacy and purpose and excitement suddenly hit me. And it was, I had the bug before, but that was like shooting just raw heroin into my veins. And I'm like, I want to do more of this. Like everything I was just telling you about, like sort of, you know, we would work on all the segments for the show, and then we would kind of have this less than exciting, session to create the week's show. Suddenly I was like, I was getting the money shot of television right there, doing it live. And it was that experience that, you know, became that seminal E3 coverage that we did over at G4 that, you know, not only did that sort of change me and change G4 and change TechTV, but all those game companies suddenly changed the way that they presented themselves to become more television friendly. Those trailers took on way more thought and production and expense because they were going to be blasted out in this kind of like curtain raising experience. And it all started with, I think, me feeling kind of idle and wanting to just try to do something different. And we did that press conference.
Now, you mentioned Nintendo E3. You have been witness to a lot of kind of seminal events in the video gaming environment. I mean, you were there for the launch of Sega's last hardware release, which was the Dreamcast. I remember like you and your entire crew like, yeah, we're going to stand in line. I think it was at Best Buy or something to pick up.
Guys, I love, we're going to stand in line and film us doing that as if it's exciting, where it should be, we're important enough that we don't have to stand in line. But,
but I mean, did you ever feel that you were sort of riding along the coattails of video game history? Because there were a lot of important things. I mean, Microsoft got into the video, like the home video game business for the first time with the Xbox. There were things that we now take for granted with a lot of the way we play. For example, now we just assume all our game consoles will have a hard drive, internet, broadband internet connection. We will have an interface that will allow us to connect online over to our friend. All that stuff was brand new, rudimentary, was just out of the box. Dreamcast tried to start. It wasn't as successful as, say, Microsoft was, and then Sony. But did you ever feel like, man, this is like watching, I mean, not to be too over the top with this, but like I'm watching like the first moon landing of video game history, just, being next to it?
I don't think I ever thought that in the moment, but wow, in retrospect, I mean, the one thing I know now is so much, and this isn't just technologically, but culturally, that video games has been sort of leading the charge for good or ill. I can assure you, like where VR, it was going to start with games. And I actually still believe that we're going to see, like, VR is going to become commonplace, not in games, but in types of surgery, things like that. That's out there. But it has to start with games first, because that's how you subsidize it. You turn it into a commercial property. Or like culturally, I hate to say it, but, Gamergate, the horrible sort of hate campaign that occurred in 2014, that was, I think, for people that went through that was a precursor of the interesting conservative environment we currently find ourselves in. You see a lot of these bellwethers in games, but you don't realize it as much until after the fact. But it was, regardless, even though it was still in the world of games, it was exciting because, we kind of knew that games were on the ascent. Movies and television were on the descent. And so there was that sense that even though it was only within this world of video games, we knew that world of video games was expanding. It was only getting bigger. I think these days it's actually it's struggling as an industry, because I think it finally hit its ceiling in terms of that. It is now that ubiquitous. But to be part of that ascent, you kind of knew it, but you didn't know what it all meant until years later.
Were there any trends in that video gaming space that you expected or saw, like, hey, this is going to be big, but didn't actually work out? Or the converse, where this is a dumb idea and it totally blew up? It's like, well, I totally didn't expect this.
Motion controls. That was supposed to be the end all be all. You'll feel like you're in the game. Yeah, that's dead. I was also really excited for that to die because, in fact, one thing I would say about the gaming press in general, at least myself, is, and this is because of the TV, I tended to be very conservative-minded and skeptical about every new innovation because every new innovation was about to make our job harder. Because it involved, like, okay, how are we supposed to review a game with motion controls? Because now we can't go full screen to just the gameplay. We now have to go picture in picture and have some poor intern dancing around like a blithering idiot trying to, like, I have a Star Wars. I have a lightsaber. So that was definitely something that didn't work out. Mobile gaming, I got to say, I didn't think it would take off like it did. And granted, I was wishing for that too, because the last thing we wanted to do was suddenly have to review mobile games. It turned out mobile games are such a different audience that there was no overlap. But it wasn't until Angry Birds that I thought, Apple doesn't really like this stuff that much. I don't know if people are going to gravitate towards it. And I was completely wrong. I was right that traditional games, as we know them on consoles, were never going to translate well to a mobile device.
Do you think there was anything you did at TechTV that you wish other networks would have continued to do, like some aspect of your kind of production, or perhaps a take you had on reviews, or maybe just like the general zeitgeist of what you were sharing with the audience?
In terms of the greater television, I don't know if there were things I wish the gaming press was paying closer attention to what we were doing, which was we were...
Listen up! You can get the new iPhone 16e with Apple Intelligence for just $49.99 when you switch to Boost Mobile. We pulled so many all-nighters to give you this deal, and hey, stop messing with the mic!
I'm just helping us catch people's attention. This is a great deal!
Exactly, so it doesn't need all that.
Fine.
Head to your nearest Boost Mobile store right now.
Visit your nearest Boost Mobile store for full offer details. Apple Intelligence requires iOS 18.1 or later. Restrictions apply.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows home so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews all on the app. Download today.
Trying to popularize it and educate the audience at the same time. So we were, it's that balancing act of, do you talk to the hardcore? And a lot of people do believe, and there's good reason for this, that if you talk to the hardcore, you're never going to get any casual people. Because it's like walking into a room and everyone's talking Latin. Like, if you don't know games and you're suddenly around a bunch of gamers, it's weird and alienating and probably smelly. Whereas if you go really casual, you're never going to have those hardcore. And once again, with that bridge of the comedy, I think that kind of eased both groups in. And that also meant that we couldn't take ourselves too seriously. And I think that that's mentally healthier. If you look at video games today, you would, look, it is a multi-billion-dollar industry and stuff, but like it's always where the culture wars are being fought. It's very unpleasant, is what I would say. Like, I stay away from all of that stuff now, and I think while there's important things that need to be said through video games, that also abandoning that sense of let's not take ourselves too seriously doesn't get that message across any better than if you don't. I think I don't like tooting my own horn, but I'm going to toot my horn right here. The one thing that was like kind of my rule for X-Play when we started writing for it is do not write for teenagers. They will come. That I don't recall myself when I was a teenager ever wanting to, ingest stuff for teens. Like I thought I was a small adult, and so I gravitated towards adult content. And I think that's the best way that you want to talk to a younger audience is you write for adults, and they will quickly learn like what is going on because they don't want to be asked to leave the table and go sit at the kids' table again, and that to not patronize your audience. That's very true for the internet, and I think a lot of TV might have survived if they had paid attention to that. But the internet, and it's still true now. You go look at TikTok. You look at a campaign like Mom Donnie's. That was, I think TikTok played such an important role for that because he comes across as sincere and that he gets the audience. And that's what video these days really is asking of you. Whereas if you're in an old style of presentation, it seems canned, it seems insincere, and you lose your audience immediately.
Your experiences at TechTV left an indelible mark on you as it did everyone else that worked there. Scars. Or I mean, I've often described it as sort of a second, university experience because
that's fair.
I went in as a career, but I also learned so much because I was working with a lot of people my age, my peers, people I went to school with. Do you still keep in regular contact with any of those people that you've worked with before, whether it was at ZDTV, TechTV, G4?
I mean, it's a lot of the kind of core crew of X-Play that was in San Francisco that made the move down to LA. One day, I keep on saying I'm going to write the memoir, but Roger, you kind of know the end of TechTV was unpleasant, and G4, even for those of us that went there, regarded it as some kind of conquering power. It was like we were the Visigoths and they were the Romans, and it was. And trust me, G4 did nothing to make us to like dispel that notion. They did horrible things. It really was awful. And that transplant going down there, watching the Screensavers people and the Unscrewed people get absolutely just jacked, made us very tight. Like we kind of linked arms and we're like, somehow we're going to see our way through this very confusing, very unstable, and deeply unprofessional experience. And as a result, they just became family to me. And so I do keep, and like family, it's not like I'm in touch with them every day, but when I'm in touch with them, we're just starting out from where we left each other.
I mean, that's heartwarming. I mean, did you find your G4 experience wildly different than the one you had at TechTV? Was the atmosphere dramatic enough where you said this sort of feels like Kansas, but not really?
So I would say there were two G4 experiences. There was the initial one, which was under the original leadership of the company, which while owned, I can't remember if it was owned exclusively by Comcast or if there was some kind of strange arrangement. It was more like a satellite office of other Comcast properties. That was similar to TechTV, in which there were no traditional TV rules that we had to work under. And so it was still the transition and the culture of LA. The minute you're doing television in LA, everything changes. Like, it's just all of a sudden I was a very small fish in the biggest pond imaginable. And that you suddenly are trying to make yourself look as big a fish as possible so you don't get made fun of, not eaten, because no one's going to bother with you. Then there was the part where we really became part of Comcast and we became part of like real TV. That ended with the acquisition of NBC, who took over, took one look at us and got rid of us. That was what came with that was the kind of support suddenly with PR, with things like with marketing and things like that, where suddenly it was a taste of the real thing. For all the good and ill that came with that. I would say 80% ill, but there was 20% good. It was very, very, very different. That's probably the most indelible mark. It's the one, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. When you suddenly don't have it, that's what you really, it's that era that I notice.
Got it.
You know, I'm not getting offered free things at the same rate. And I'm not talking games and money from Microsoft. I mean, just walking into bars, walking into restaurants, things like that.
Now, when you look back at your entire experience and you compare it to what you've done online through the internet, whether it's been like Revision 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
What are the lessons that you've learned that you can say that are easily transposable from one to the other? You mentioned earlier, don't talk down to the audience, don't patronize them. Is there an approach? Is there you need to be sincere at all times? You need to be a legitimate, authentic person when you describe, when you play these games, when you give them to the audience, that they can say, yeah, I totally believe you because you're someone I see as my peer.
Yeah, there's a lot. And the second half of that, sort of that sincerity and coming across as a real person, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have performance skills. The way that I think it works, and the best people who are out there, it's kind of like John Coltrane, jazz greats. It sounds like John Coltrane is, for A Love Supreme, is just making it up right there in the spot. But that's the art. He knows exactly what he's doing for the duration of that performance. He knows every note that's about to come, but it sounds like it's happening right there in the moment. That's what makes it so electric for the audience. That's what the best people are doing online, and there's very, very few of them. I play a lot of video games still, and I'm old. I don't sometimes feel like figuring out what I'm doing wrong when I'm fighting a boss in an Elden Ring, and so I'll go look for a video, and I have to turn the VO off. It's just that's not how you do it. Yes, you're being your authentic self, but you need to have a more refined, authentic version of yourself. You need to, not everyone can do it. And you kind of have to have a demented love of language, love of talking, and that kind of weird brain that can synthesize a bunch of things and turn it into a coherent sentence. Right there. And the person that can balance the two of those, that's the person. Who was the guy that they eventually purchased over at Rev3, that Discovery? Really, really popular YouTuber. Nice guy.
Yeah. He was not source fed. I
think it was the source fed guy. I just can't think of his name. But anyway, he's an excellent example of that. And
Phil DeFranco.
Excellent. Anthony Carbone's another one. Just has that quality that is, they are themselves, but extra. And that's, I think that because the YouTubes and the TikToks of the world, they don't really care about the quality. They care about the quantity, because that's what they slap ads against. And stop chasing that algorithm for success. That's what New G4, when they revived it, that's what they were trying to do, and it doesn't really work. I would say if you really want to make it work, you've got to figure out how to be authentic and also be incredibly practiced, incredibly polished in that moment. As I can't come up with the word. Mm-hmm.
What are you doing now that you're?
Very little. I do want to write a book. After Rev3, I did the consulting thing for, everyone does that. And then eventually I founded an AI company that it was not producing AI. This is before the AI everything, but I wanted to it was kind of my mea culpa to the game industry, where I wanted to figure out if there was a way to aggregate all the conversations that were happening about video games and be able to break them down by topic per game, and then also teach an AI that could actually gauge the sentiment. So many game companies are, and not just game companies, but other entities out there are so susceptible to the all caps guys and the organized astroturfing hate mobs, and they will change their policies. There's something happening right now in games where some adult content is getting pulled from Steam and itch.io over like one of these mobs. Yeah. And one of the things is because once they start happening, your brain goes, if one person is saying it to me, that must mean they represent 100,000 people. And we really don't know that to be a fact. And I wanted to answer that question. And so the AI part was training an AI to understand how people talk about video games, which means a lot of profanity, and a lot of profanity that could be a positive or a negative. Also, only within the realm of video games would the term headshot actually denote something good rather than something horrible. And so we had to create a very specific AI that could ingest tons of Twitter, tons of Reddit, and then go, okay, with regard to your game, they're talking about these topics. They think this is really good and this is really bad. And we did it virtually real time, so we could tell even during a press conference when they were losing the audience and when they had them. Did that for a few years, as with all companies. There was drama, but eventually it got purchased, and it's allowed me to kind of slow my life down to a crawl, where I talk about writing a memoir, probably about a lot of the stuff we talked about on this. I want to take notes like that. Wait, that's a good story for the book.
I mean, you are filled with amazing stories. You along with Scott Harry, have some of the wildest stories I've heard from them. If people wanted to follow you, or perhaps just kind of see what you've been doing, or follow any of your work, where should they head to?
Well, the only social media that I have a presence on, I am a little bit on TikTok. Mainly it's Blue Sky at Adam Sessler. Nothing surprising. I do have some old stuff on Substack, but actually, depending on when you're watching this, I might have some new stuff. I think I'm going to try out some chapters of said memoir on the old Substack and see what people do with it. So it's a blog that's called Not Your Monkey. Yeah.
I mean, I actually like that title. It's great. Adam, it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
It's been a lot of fun.
Just catching up and just finding out everything you know about that world of kind of doing game coverage from the other side of the camera. And for the rest of you listening, thank you so much for listening. This is it for this episode of Tech TV Scrapbook. I'd like to thank Adam Sessler again for taking the time out of his schedule to be on today's show. If you have any comments, questions, or anything else about today's show, email me at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. And until next time, I'll see you on the next episode of Tech TV Scrapbook.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
If your dog could talk, they'd beg for Ollie. The full-body tail wag, the excited little hops, the big, goofy grin, that's the Ollie effect. Ollie delivers clean, fresh nutrition in 5 drool-worthy flavors, even for the pickiest eaters. Made in U.S. kitchens with high-quality, human-grade ingredients, Ollie's food contains no fillers, no preservatives, just real food. Just fill out Ollie's 30-second quiz and they'll create a customized meal plan based on your pup's weight, activity level, and other health info. Dogs deserve the best. And that means fresh, healthy food. Head to ollie.com/healthypup, tell them about your dog, and use code HEALTHYPUP to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/healthypup and enter code HEALTHYPUP to get 60% off your first box.